You know when you said it went well, when you said well, did you mean shite?
Yes. I froze up. I just made a tit of myself.
How much of a tit?
I said, girl power.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark, and joining me on today's episode is a huge guest. This is absolutely unbelievable, and I'm so glad that I'm getting to announce this for episode 30. When I started the Mark and Me podcast, this person was top of my list. Anyone that knows me and knows of my other podcast, Skip to the End, will know how much of a fan of Spaced I am. In my opinion, the best British comedy of all time. Absolutely incredible. And hey, my other podcast is called Skip to the End, so that indicates just how much I love this. So I can't believe I'm going to be actually joined by Jessica Hynes. Daisy herself will be on today's show. If you've seen Shaun of the Dead, if you've seen the Royle Family, films like Bridget Jones, and of course Spaced, you will know how good this actress is. One of the best in the business, and in my opinion, one of the best characters of all time in Spaced. Absolutely mind-blown, and someone that you will fall in love with within minutes of watching her on screen. I can't believe that I've actually got her. It's taken a while, I'm not going to lie, so since we started Mark and Me, it was top of my list, and it's been a lot of emails and exchanges and getting it right, but hey, everything that is great is always worth waiting for, and that's proved today when I've joined by Jessica. Before we get into today's episode in more detail, what I want to talk about a little bit is the last episode with John Heder. An absolutely amazing actor, and one of my favourite characters is Napoleon Dynamite, so again, it was another dream come true to have him join me on the Mark and Me podcast. The response to this episode was mind-blowing. I've never had so many comments on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram saying how much you all enjoyed this interview, how natural it was and how funny it was. And yeah, I read all the comments, and seeing stuff like how natural we both sounded and that we were two mates that have hung out and known each other forever is the best indication for me that I'm doing it right, and the best indication that you're loving the episodes, and that's what I do it for. To read those comments makes my day, so thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to that episode and just taking the time to leave a comment or a tweet or a Facebook comment. It really did make my day reading those. But on to today's episode. When I started Mark and Me, I had a list of guests I wanted. Obviously people like Kevin Smith, Anthony Hopkins, Kurt Russell, all the big names, but before any of them, Spaced was my big priority. I've always wanted to speak to Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg and Jessica Hynes, so to have one of those join me today is honestly such a big deal for me, and personally I'm just absolutely thrilled. So let's get into today's episode. Here's my interview with me and Jessica Hynes. So Jess, my first question for you today is, how did it come about in your life that you started acting?
I had a really great teacher when I was at primary school who used to put on a lot of plays, and it was a time, before, kind of Ofsted. So it was the good old days or the bad old days, depending on how you want to look at it. And she and this other teacher used to write plays and put music to them and create shows, and we'd sometimes do two shows in the little school hall in my primary school in Brighton, and she just was a real enthusiast for drama and performance. And I think in the workshops and things she did, she noticed that I was kind of quite sort of enthusiastic, I suppose you could say that.
Yeah.
So we used to do all these plays, and she was really complimentary and said lots of things that I remember. And actually I went out, I think late last year, I went and saw her down in Brighton, and we went out for lunch and had a catch up. I just always remembered her and kind of kept in touch with her thread. I look back, and she would write a play, and I would have these huge kind of comic roles. We did a production of The Emperor's New Clothes,
Yeah.
And she wrote me this really camp role, and I remember it was this character called Harkworth, who would sort of rush around after the king, you know, fawning over him, and I loved it. And I think she just thought I knew I would know how to make it funny and know what to do, and I didn't even think about it, but I did, and I loved it. And then I think at that point it just sowed the seed of it. You know, I just sort of thought, this is a good plan. This is a plan. This is a life plan. And so that seemed like a good one. So it really started with the acting. Anyway, so I didn't do much for secondary school. There was a bit of drama, but not much. But there was a drama class that was local. I got into that. There was a great teacher, and I used to go there sort of very much independently. I was very much a sort of kind of an 80s kid where, you know, if I wanted to do something, it wasn't a era where parents drove you around. Wasn't my experience of childhood. It's like, if you want to do it, do it. Get on the bus, go and find out where it's happening, go and do it, make it happen. So I think I had a very sort of make it happen for yourself attitude. So yeah, and that was the beginning. And as a result of the drama class that I was a part of, I then became a part of the National Youth Theatre, and the teacher suggested that I audition. So from the ages of 11 to 13, I was at this drama group, and then she said audition for the National Youth Theatre, and I did that. I got in when I was 14, actually. Then after that, it happened quite quickly, to be honest, in terms of actually getting an agent. I don't know when I really decided I wanted to write to. I know I loved TV, and I loved film. And then when I joined the National Youth Theatre, I kind of also loved theatre as well. But I used to watch a lot of TV as a child, and films, and so I somehow knew I wanted to be, you know, involved in that in some way.
Was there a certain film growing up, or a certain actor, or some TV show that gripped you, that made you really kind of fall in love with it?
I was indiscriminate in my watching. I watched everything, like, all the time. And because the TV was obviously completely different, you begin to know what you think is good and know what you think is bad. By watching good and bad, you formulate a taste. You begin to, you know, just through the sheer sort of the viewing and perception and the amount that you do, you begin to understand how things are put together. And when things are put together well, why you like it, and then when they're not put together well, why you don't like it. But I would almost decide, I would watch literally anything. I mean, from championship snooker, like, all the way through to sort of, you know, it was almost screams more than anything. Just was very happy to escape. But also music as well, so records, and I was just very voracious when it came to absorbing TV or pop culture, I suppose, then. I mean, it wasn't as pop culture as it is now, maybe wasn't quite the same, but I suppose it was an olden days version of it. I just was voracious about it, listening and watching and getting into things. So it was everything.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I suppose I remember different stages in my childhood. I remember different shows that I used to really love. But I liked all of them, all the classics. You know, Monkey, obviously, which was one of my very favourites, which was mind-blowing. I mean, that was like, I think, when I started wanting to write, I felt like I wanted to do something that was like that in terms of its impact. And the way it just was, like, unlike anything else. It was so bold. You know, the sort of title sequence, the story of him kind of coming to Earth, the visuals, you know, the amazingly bad, good special effects and visuals. It was just, it felt like such a gift. It felt so special. It felt like a kind of tiny movie on TV, which actually for kids who don't have access to films in the way that people do now, felt like someone was going to the extra mile for you, you know?
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of kids' tea was... I was not particularly into Blue Peter, for example. I would watch it. You know, anything studio-based always seemed very simple and, like... But when something like Monkey comes along, it's just mind-blowing. And something that extra special could be on television, and not, because things like that are normally on the big screen and on especially in those days, you know, or on film. So that definitely made a massive impression on me, Monkey.
So when you turned around to your parents and you kind of, I don't know about you, but for me, going into creative arts, for some parents, that's not the thing they always want. You know, they kind of think it's a bit of a risk. Were they supportive? Were they... Oh,
God, I mean, it's, again... I was a product of very much just do it. Yeah, what do you want to do? Yeah, go ahead. You know, like, again, it was do it to the best of your abilities, and just do it with all your passion and all your determination. Just do it. But I mean, I don't even remember having that conversation. That was something that was a given. Probably something I learned from TV as well.
Yeah.
I don't know when.
I mean, there's so much TV you've done, but stuff like Harry Enfield and Six Pairs of Pants and Asylum and stuff, they're such iconic shows. And growing up for me, watching Harry Enfield was like the weekly entertainment. That and Bottom and stuff were the classics. What was it like being on Harry Enfield? Because it was...
Oh, it was amazing.
Unbelievable.
It was like, when I first did it, I was very starstruck meeting him. You know, all of those comedy greats. When I met Dawn French, when I met Jennifer Saunders, it was amazing for me. And being on Harry Enfield was brilliant. Him and Paul Whitehouse, that was the thing that everyone would talk about at school the next day, do impressions of and try and emulate, and, you know, as performers aspire to be. So yeah, it was amazing working with him. He's a lovely, lovely person.
And then I just mentioned Asylum. So was this the first time you met Edgar Wright, and this is the first time you kind of got to see how he...
No, I met Edgar Wright before then. Sometime, not quite before then. I met Edgar Wright when I did a sketch for Matt Lucas and David Walliams when they were making a sketch called A Puppet Lives in My House. It was a sort of prototype, I think it was like prototype Little Britain sketch show that they did, but they were doing they were parodying the sort of old style American shows, and they wanted me to play some characters in the show, and I did it, and Edgar was directing those little sketches for them. One of them was Puppet Lives in My House, and then I think something else, but he was directing that, so that's when I met Edgar. Separately, then met Simon doing Six Pairs of Pants. I don't think Simon had met Edgar then. No, it was coincidence then that then when Simon finished Six Pairs of Pants and went on to Asylum, that Edgar was then directing that, and that they had then both worked with me, Edgar through Matt and Dave, and Simon through Six Pairs of Pants. Somebody had dropped out of Asylum, a comic. They were looking for someone else, and Simon suggested me, and Edgar said, "Oh, yeah, I know, I've worked with her through David," and then I came on board to Asylum then.
Obviously, this led to, in my opinion, the greatest British comedy of all time, Spaced. I can hear your head growing as I say it, but it's true. There's nothing else as fresh as this. It was
great. It was great to be that young, making something like that, conceiving that at such a young age. I was 24, thinking about that and thinking there's nothing on TV that's like for us. It needs to be amazing, and you're so ambitious. When you're young, you don't think about the limitations too much. Like you don't think about the how. You just sort of just go for it. And so it was great making something at the age at which pretty much I was, in the show.
It must be quite weird because obviously you're involved in it. You're writing it. You're acting in it. But did you realise while you were filming it with Edgar and Simon and everyone else that you were making something so bloody good?
To be honest, that's definitely what the intention was. Yeah, I mean that was the goal. Again, it was like in a way with Monkey. It was like, let's make something. I want to make something that's like a gift. That's like better than that's not lazy or kind of like complacent or that is as possibly as brilliant as it can possibly be. In all ways, that looks brilliant and is brilliant and is different and truthful as well. I mean, that reflects a truth of our lives at that time, which was all about shared houses and friendships and bad jobs and going out and identity and belonging and love and all of those things that we were all going through. That I felt it would be really good to try to reflect and put on television. That was the impulse. That was the instinct.
I'm just saying this as a viewer. It must have felt for me that it never felt like work. Every day that you went on set must have been some of the best days of your lives. It must.
Well, it's funny you say that. My situation was I had my first son something like 3 months, maybe 4 months before we filmed the first series. So my son was 4 months old when we filmed the first series of Space. I had Gabriel when I was 25, and I was pregnant through the writing and the finishing the writing of the series, and felt very clear-headed and prolific and creative and brilliant in pregnancy. And then when Gabe came along, really I just wanted to sort of sit and gaze at him. But then this was also happening in my life, that worked for and dreamt of and wanted. I had two amazing things going on in my life simultaneously. Two enormous, massive, life-changing things running along completely simultaneously. So the first series of Space was when we were filming sometimes 14 hours a day, and then I would just go home and be with Gabriel and try and sort of stay out with him and be with him and teach him, and then get up again at 5:30 or 6 and go and film again all day. So my life was intense, I think it's a way of, at that time. And I remember a lot of it, you know, in great sort of technicolor, but I also think I spread myself a little bit too thin.
Yeah.
So I was kind of on a sort of super charge. It suited me in some ways. It's not something I couldn't do, and I did do, but it's that the two ends of my life, it felt as extremes. On the one hand, I wanted to lie in bed and cradle my newborn baby and just be with him, and then on the other hand, I was going around and doing however many scenes or takes and filming, you know, squeezing every single second out of every single day to try and get everything, you know, on screen that we'd been dreaming up and wanting to create every day, intensively, all day. So it was a really intense time. I have a lot of fun memories, but, you know, it was
pretty challenging.
You know, I could have, I think in my younger days I did tend to, I packed it in.
I've been speaking to quite a lot of actors and actresses and people, and a lot of the people I speak to, which always surprises me, they don't watch their work back. Are you one of these people, or do you love and enjoy it once it's finished?
I think I'm looking forward to watching it. There's been a couple of opportunities I've had to watch a marathon, and I don't know, it's never happened. I regret that. I regret not going and watching a marathon. I think I'm probably ready now. I think I'll find it quite emotional. I know my son, it might be something I do with my son. He's going to university this year, and I might watch it with him before he goes.
That'd be awesome. Like, sit down and watch your mum on this TV show. You must be like, that's amazing.
I haven't watched it again, really, all the way through. No.
So some of your other key roles, obviously, one of the most iconic UK shows for me is Royle Family. I think it's genius writing.
Great show.
It's just absolutely timeless. It's up there for kind of Only Fools and Horses for me. I stick on UK Gold or whatever it's called this week, and I kind of...
Yeah.
You can watch an episode again and again. What was it like working with Caroline? Because she seems to be incredible.
Was a phenomenal person. She was so clever.
Yeah.
And so talented and so kind. And she was sort of like a superstar. I've always thought of her as a bit like Marilyn Monroe. I think I've said that before. She had that vibe about her. Really kind of beautiful, sort of enigmatic, elusive, and sort of sensual. She was just a really, she, like when she walked in the room, it was like, oh, there's the star. You were never in any doubt. Her presence, she had an amazing presence, a commanding presence, and that kind of combined with this razor-sharp brain. And she didn't miss anything. Nothing got past her. She did have the skill of what wasn't important. She was able to ignore what was important or mattered or, she was interested in. She wouldn't. But she was a great writer, a great person to work with.
Another one that I was kind of quite surprised by is the fact that you got to go on stuff like Bridget Jones's Diary, which is some of the, biggest films out there. Does that sometimes is it quite hard to get your head around the fact that you're on these TV shows and these, these all these different varieties of comedy, but then you went in kind of a more serious role, but the budget and the production value and everything on a film like Bridget Jones must be crazy.
It's amazing going on those big films like Bridget Jones. They are so enormous. They're like their own, their own universe. Like, Bridget Jones in many ways is dwarfed by some of the other, behemoth film franchises, but it is massive. And I did Paddington, I've done, which was such a thrill, but that has the same feeling. It's just like enormous, effort and incredible, and it's always thrilling to be part of that.
Is it a little intimidating, or is it you past that now?
I think when I was younger, and I was on film sets, I think I might have found that. I might have found it a little bit, depending on what I was going through. But I think that, I think especially during those times when you're kind of, I had 3 children, and I always found, that adjustment of getting back into that zone. It's a different headspace. It's a different way of being and an energy, and I love it. It's such freedom. It's childish freedom, that kind of play, and I'm more and more in touch with that now. I think sometimes, you sort of turn up and you feel like you're coming literally from kind of babyland, and you're like, I don't know, you can't orientate. You're in a huge. I mean, I used to take babies with me as well, but sometimes they'd be squirreled away in a little three-way or a little kind of caravan somewhere with a carer, a nanny or a friend, so young enough, and I didn't want to be away from them. And so those were times when you feel like this is insane, and you feel kind of quite small and disorientated. But then other times, it's amazing. And to be honest, I've never had that big a part in any of those films for me to really feel like I can lord it up. I'm always a bit in awe and just kind of gawping at the stars, really. But it's always a thrill doing it.
So now that your children are a bit older, you've kind of had the opportunity to step on the other side of the camera. You're currently you're directing your first major film, The Fight. That. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit more about The Fight? Because this must be a completely new world for you, being on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, I loved every minute of doing it. It came about, I'm actually in the process now. We finished the grade. We finished the edit, finished the grade. We're just talking, cleaning up the sound, doing the sound. We're hopefully got an amazing composer coming on, but we're just working that out at the moment. It was an idea that I'd had a few years ago, and I was lucky enough to meet a financier who was fantastic at championing and budgeting micro-budget films. And I said, I've got an idea, and I sent her over the idea that was slightly different when I first sent it to her. And it was an idea that I'd had, and I tried to picture the film, and then the film producer, and she said, I like it, but these days it's so hard to make films, nobody's making any money in films, why don't you reimagine it, re-envision it as a TV series? And so I sort of didn't really have a heart for that, so I just shelved it. But then when I got an opportunity to make a film, I thought, actually, maybe that would be a good, if I could film it all in, because it was a micro-budget feature, I thought, well, I could film it all in the town I live, which would save money. But I can find all the locations, I can find all the extras, and everyone volunteered and got involved. There was the school, we used a school and a people's home and a factory, and everyone was so generous with their time and facilities and businesses, and people were so great. So we were able to, make it here, which was amazing. And Maggie, who was the main producer, and who said yes, said yes in literally in March last year, and then now we've finished it now. So it's taken a year, envision it, right, get it up and running. We filmed it in July, and then now it's kind of done. And I kind of felt like I'd been stuck in development hell and doing, just trying to get things going, and everyone had the same experiences. Even people who appear to be kind of like doing one thing after another will tell you for every one thing they do, there's 10 that they don't. That's just the nature of it. It's the main requirement, I suppose, in what we do is tenacity, determination, and just saying, keep going, you just keep trying, and that doesn't work, try something else, that doesn't work, try it. And I suppose I do have that going and keep trying, and I pitched this idea, and she liked it, and then I developed it and changed it and honed it, and it became something else which I really liked. Initially, it was perhaps more of a comedy, and then it turned very much more into a drama, but I like that direction, and I love the process of filmmaking, and even micro-budget filmmaking, where we basically made the film in 12 days, not a long time, but not much money, but I loved every part of it. I loved the whole thing, and we had really great actors who came along and got a good crew. I had a fantastic DOP, Ryan Edison, who did Prevenge, who's so good at working at that speed and in that environment, and couldn't have been more supportive and a better champion, on set as for me as a first-time director. It was a really positive experience. So many ways, it was hard, and we didn't have any time, but we did it, and it was great. I just want to do it again. I think I felt like in that moment that I was always, I felt very comfortable as a writer-director, and I felt comfortable doing that, and it felt, really, really great. And I'm so far, I'm really happy with the film. It's not a comedy, although we do have a great cameo from Alice Lowe, who came along. But I'm proud of it, and I'm really, really, really grateful that I got a chance to direct and make it, because a year ago I would not have imagined, more than a year ago before the film happened, you said, oh yeah, no, you're going to direct your own feature. Yeah, I'd been like, what? How? And then it happened. So sometimes good things do happen.
Has it give you a taste for it now? Do you want to do a lot more, or have you kind of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yes, I absolutely do. Yes, I do. Always want to do a lot more. Even when I don't want to do a lot more, I always want to do a lot more, yeah. And
have you kind of got a newfound respect for film directors you've worked with in the past? Are you just like...
No, oddly, I'm like the opposite. I'm like, fuck, what's all the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
That's what I've got. And then I'm like, what I've got newfound respect for is actors. It's so weird. Every time an actor turned up on set, whatever time, in costume, saying, okay, where do you want me? I felt like I wanted to fall down on my knees in gratitude.
Yeah.
Like, A, thank you for turning up. Like, actually being here today to film these scheduled scenes, to say and do this charade, I just thank you. And then when they, under pressure and with lack of time, they keep trying and searching, and I know all actors work in a different process, but there's always an element of vulnerability, and however an actor lives their process and does their thing, and they do that, actors do that, and I had a newfound respect for actors, myself I suppose, but other actors as well. But they're so grateful, and we did get some really lovely performances from everyone actually. So that's when you're so grateful, because when you're in the edit, I mean, it's not easy editing yourself, because you're like, oh, shut up, when did she do it? Look at her, la la la, stop it. And obviously you're allowed to do that because it's you're talking about on screen. So I had a lot of laughs with my editor flagging myself off on screen. Can you find a moment of truth in that performance? Seems like she means what she's saying. Obviously, I wouldn't do that to anyone else. But you're always going to be your harshest critic. It's not a fun experience editing yourself. And I'm so glad that while we were filming, I did cut a lot of my own lines. Thank God. And Sophie, our lovely continuity person, come up and say, oh, you're not going to say that? I said, no, I'll cut it. I'm not saying that. No, I'm just looking. And I'm very grateful for that, because actually, in the edit, those are the bits we're really grateful for, is no lines. That's what really can make it better and work. Because once you've said it, if all you've got is the words, and they're not quite working, it's very difficult to get around that. So, yeah. It was and continues to be a great experience.
And what's the kind of current state? Do you think it's a film that should hopefully get released this year?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I've kind of got, once we finish it, I suppose we'll see what's going to happen with it. I mean, the normal route is festivals and then take it further afield, see what happens. I mean, I think hopefully it will be released this year. I can't imagine it's going to be too long. We're in the last stages. We're in the sound stages. I think it would be a case of just waiting for the soundtrack. So, yeah, shouldn't be too long. Yeah.
And is Russell Brand involved?
He has kindly given us his services. I don't want to give away too much.
No, that's fair enough.
He definitely has. He lends us his voice. I mean, he also he comes on screen very briefly. You have to try and spot him. We were trying to sort of find people to play this role, and I know Russell, and I was just, well, we need to get someone, someone big, someone, blah, blah, blah. And I was saying, what about this? And I said, I could ask Russell Brand. And it was literally like kind of needle scratch of a record. They were like, what? I was like, well, I could ask Russell. They said, yes, ask Russell. Because they got very excited at the prospect that I might call him and say, Russell, will you come and do this? And that he might say yes. And he did. God love him. God bless him. He did. And I briefly tried to direct him. And he just said, Jessica. The only thing that's going through my head is favour for Jessica. He said, don't try and direct me. I was like, yeah, fine. Keep on doing what you do. It's all fine. Just carry on. It was great. He's a really, really special, nice person.
So looking back at your career, you've obviously been in some of the most iconic TV series of all time. You've been in stuff like Shaun of the Dead, which is one of the best comedies to come from this country. You've even been involved in Crystal Maze, which is one of my favourite TV shows growing up. You've kind of ticked all the big boxes, and now you've gone into directing films. What is next for you? Is there anything that you've kind of... you want to tick it off on that list of your kind of life story?
Wow, gosh, I've never thought about it like that. Now you put it like that. Hang on. No,
You need to write a book. You need to do some poetry. You need to...
I'd like to do a comedy. I'd actually like to do a really good comedy film.
Yeah?
No, that's what I'd like to do. And I feel like after this film, I felt like I kind of got the, there was a sense of getting it out of my system a bit. Sort of like, directing something which I really wanted to do, and I felt that there's something about the film that was in me that was kind of wanting to be made. There were things I was, wanting to explore maybe, and I felt really happy that I did that, and although it's not comedy, it brought me back right round to comedy, and I'm like, I just feel like I want to do comedy now. I want to do I want to do anything. I want to do something really funny, at least do one funny thing. Somebody laugh once more before. I want to just do more comedy. I want to laugh more, and I want to do more comedy. So it's all about the laughs, I think. It took a long while for me to find it, but I've just watched Zoolander 2, which I thought was hilarious. I'm just like, this is so good. It's so funny. I love it. I mean, I like a lot of things, but I love Zoolander 2, and I like the tone. I like the comic tone of Thor Ragnarok. But again, I like lots of different things. But comedy is the thing I think I want to do more of now. I'm kind of get back into that. I don't know what people are going to make of the fight. I'm proud of it, but I want to do a comedy now. I've got an idea for a comedy film, so I'm just gonna. I mean, that could be one of the 9, or it could be the one. I don't know, but I'm going to plow on.
You probably get sick of this, but would you ever feel that you could return to Daisy Steiner, or is that done and buried?
Oh, of course. No, I mean, she's with me all the time. I love her, and I love, that time is magical. In so many ways, it was magical. And as I get older, I get much more sentimental and nostalgic, and about lots of things. And of course, I could return to Daisy Steiner.
What do you reckon she's doing now? Do you reckon she's got kids with Tim, or do you think she's still kind of trying to make a career for herself?
I like to think about Daisy. I think Daisy might be living with a cat somewhere. I think Daisy might have a dog. I think she might not have had kids. I think Daisy might be, taking a bit of a different route. I think Tim probably definitely has. I think Daisy might have, done a bit more travelling, and I think she might have done the road less travelled, maybe. Spent a bit of time in a Tibetan monastery, maybe. Ice skated, with Inuit. I think she might have had some adventures.
Do you think she's found love yet with somebody else, or do you think?
I think she was probably always going to be looking for herself.
Yeah. I don't want to imagine her with somebody else. I don't want her to find a true love with somebody that isn't Tim.
Don't want to find... You don't want... maybe she never does. Maybe she's been to everywhere, but she hasn't been to her. Maybe. Maybe not. But, love never dies. It shouldn't. You should try and make... I like to think about having, good living a life. That was her thing. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, well, I'll just try that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Perhaps she just makes a film. Perhaps she goes off and just becomes a filmmaker in real life and as Daisy. That's the dream.
Maybe I think imagine Daisy like a kind of female Ed Wood. I think.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
Just filming Brian.
Maybe doing really bad, not quite hitting the mark documentaries. Your subjects, kind of an extension of journalism. It's a natural graduation, kind of like a sub female Louis Theroux maybe, who only has an internet presence, only has a YouTube presence. She makes the films herself and uploads them. So
if someone's listening right now...
She's definitely being a YouTube blogger now.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So my final question is, a lot of people listen to the podcast that are about to take a step into either becoming an actor or an actress, or they want to get into the industry. What is the best advice you can give to anyone that wants to be like yourself and be in films and TV and write?
Just try and have as much fun as you possibly can. Try and make everything fun. Don't take things too seriously.
It gets boring, doesn't it, when it's serious?
Yeah, don't fall into that trap. Just have fun as much as possible. And then if you're having fun, it's always going to be better when it turns into work, and whatever you write, just have fun.
So there's my interview, and again, when you get these big actresses or actors and you've been such a fan of their work, there is that slight concern when you have them on the show because you think, please don't be horrible or say something that I don't like, because you've grown up absolutely loving these people and characters, and the respect I have for Jessica doubled after speaking to her. She's one of the nicest, greatest people I've ever spoken to, and I'm so grateful for her giving me the time and having this interview for you all to listen to. So a huge thanks to Jessica. Also, one of my friends, Holly Payne, helped this happen. This interview took a long time to get, and like I said earlier, a lot of emails and a lot of patience, but with Holly's help, this interview took place, and I want to say a massive thanks to Holly Payne. I owe you so many drinks next time you're in the country, so thank you again. Also, I just want to say, and I say it every episode, how much I appreciate you all listening. The reason this podcast is so good and so successful is because you all take the time to listen, and you all send these positive vibes out there on the internet of, listen to this, and I see the retweets and people promoting, and I can't do it all on my own. So to see all of you inputting and kind of sharing these episodes is so appreciated, and I love every single one of you, so thank you. Joining me on the episode in 2 weeks' time is going to be the film director Tom Payton, very famous for obviously Redwood and most recently Black Site, which is due out soon. I did tease this and also explain that he would be coming on when I interviewed Mike Beckingham only a few weeks ago, and I'm very pleased to say that this episode will be out in a couple of weeks' time. As always, I need you to get onto the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, which is all available on markandme.com. And finally, I have got the Patreon running. More people are signing up, and I'm around 25% of my first target now. So if you're listening to this and you're one of my supporters on Patreon, thank you. I am going to be surprising you all with some little treats for you very shortly, and I'm getting on there to make sure that you've got updates and all this. But if you're interested, the link is on markandme.com. Even if you just throw me the price of a coffee each month, it all helps in me travelling and getting out there to bring you more content. So please check it out. The podcast will always remain free, and again, it's on Spotify, it's on Podomatic, it's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher. Whatever you need, it's all on markandme.com, and I hope it's all nice and easy for you all to use. In the meantime, everyone, for the next 2 weeks, take care, be safe, I love you all, and I'll speak to you all again in a couple of weeks' time.